You guys seem to really like my advertising visual effects tutorials, so I thought I'd bring you a super fun one to do today. Like always, if you want to work along with us, you can download everything I use down below. So first thing we need to do is orientate our screen so we can actually model out the actual screen. So I'm going to be using FSpy for that. That's going to be a separate program, so you'll need to download the program and also the importer add-on to use inside of Blender. So I went ahead and just kind of rendered out the first frame of my sequence, and I'm going to drag that into this and then dim image off. And then we basically just want to align our scene. I'm going to grab this Y right here, just going to kind of align it to this line right here. And if you do know how to like zoom in to FSpy, please let me know, because I do not, and I couldn't find anything about it online. It makes this a little bit difficult since I can't really zoom in and get the lines perfect. But once we have kind of the two Y lines like that, I'm going to switch the X to a Z. And then let's go ahead and put these kind of on the edge of this building. Whenever you're doing this in FSpy, you always want to make sure that your lines are perpendicular to each other, since that's how they would be in the actual scene. So I'm going to put my other one like on this line right here. And now you can see that we have this kind of origin point. I'm just going to kind of put this in the middle for now. But that is the correct kind of scene layout. We're going to go ahead and Control S to save the project. Once you have that saved, we can go ahead and exit out of FSpy. We want to go inside of Blender. Let's just enable the FSpy add-on. So edit preferences, add-ons. You want to hit install and install the zip file. And then it should pop up with this. You want to make sure that this is checked and enabled. And then with that, we can go up to File. We want to go to Import FSpy and then just import in the FSpy project that we just made. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to click that, import that into our project. Then let's just go ahead and delete everything and start from scratch. So X, delete that. And then what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and model out where I want my screen to be. So Shift A, add mesh plane, gonna rotate on the X 90 degrees. And then let's go hit tab, go into edit mode, hit 2 to go to edge select. I'm just going to basically model out where I want the screen to be. So G, Z, move that all the way up to the top of the building. And I kind of want it on this edge right here. So G and then X to move that to the edge. GX, move that to the other edge, and then I'm just going to move this down, so GZ like that. And one thing you do want to know is that, you know, everything I was doing, I kept my plane kind of on this surface. If, for example, you're seeing anything like if I, you know, move this out a little bit, and now you'll see that our plane is actually not on the axis anymore. You don't want that. You want this to be perfectly straight on one specific axis. It could be either be the X or the Y. It doesn't really matter there. And then what we want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and extrude this and make it, you know, extend this out a little bit. So I'm going to hit 3 to go into face select this face. Going to hit E to extrude and then S to scale outwards, and something like that looks pretty good. Then we're just going to hit X to delete the face that we have selected. So now we just have this kind of, you know, cavity. This is going to be where we're actually going to put a holdout texture, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And then I just want to select this face, and I want to go ahead and E to extrude that, and we're just going to extrude it in somewhere around there. Of course, you can play around with your scene. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the render view, and you'll notice that we don't have anything set up. So first of all, I'm going to go to the Cycles render engine. You can work inside of Eevee, but I just like sticking inside of Cycles. GPU compute if you have one. Denoise on the viewport on. I'm going to change the sample count to a 64 so we don't have that many samples in the viewport. And then denoise off here, and I'm actually going to set this to be a 128. We can always denoise that in the future. It just takes a little bit extra time for now, and since we're not ready to render out, yeah, we don't really need the denoise. So some things I actually want to set up inside of the scene real quick just to make it a little bit easier to actually see everything is, first of all, let's get rid of our grid floor. So I'm going to come up here, change the floor and the X, Y, and axis off. So now we have a little bit cleaner. And I also like to select my camera, go down here and select the background images. I want to change that opacity all the way up. And now we are actually ready to start adding materials and shading our scene. So what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and set this to be a holdout texture, because right now if I actually come here and, you know, disable this, if we had not, you know, kind of rendered this out, you'll see that we actually see the edge of that, and we don't want to see that at all. So again, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and add our first material. So come over here, material, and whatever this first material is actually what I want to be inside the room. So I'm just going to name this material the room material, and then we want to add another material, and this isn't going to apply to any of the things just yet, but if we hit that, we want to name this one holdout. And then of course everything is still the room. And so what we want to do is again just select these kind of faces out here, and we want to select the holdout texture. And again, that hasn't done anything yet, and that's actually because we have to hit assign. And now that we have assigned it, we basically have two separate materials inside of one object. So let's go to the holdout material. I'm going to change this to be a holdout, like that. And basically holdout just doesn't render anything behind the actual what we have selected, and so that's going to be really useful for actually compositing in our footage. And so what we'll notice here is that there's a little bit of a line. So what I want to do is I want to come up to the render properties, go down to film, and check transparent, and that just gets rid of that. And so now we basically just see kind of the cavity of where we want to actually mess around with some of the cool like screen visual effects. So let's go ahead and add some lighting in our scene. I'm going to go to the world properties. I'm just going to use an HDRI for this tutorial, so make sure to download that. And then we want to select it to be an environment texture, and we're going to open up the HDRI. So once you have that, we're just going to open the image, and you can see that it's got us some really nice shading in the scene. I'm not trying to match the actual lighting of my footage. And so now that we have our lighting, let's go ahead and make a material for our room. So if we select this, we want to go to our room material over here. And for this, I'm kind of going to do like a pastel pink color. So for the base color, I just looked up on Google kind of pastel hex codes. And so I believe the one that I'm going to do is FFA DAD, like that. And so that's just kind of like a nice little pastel pink. You can, of course, play around with whatever you want. It's a little bit dark in here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go Shift A, add a light. We're going to go area light. And then let's just bring that out here, kind of bring that up there. And then I'm going to basically just point that to our kind of interior lighting here. We're going to just kind of try to bounce some light up here. It's way too small right now, so let's increase the size over here. And of course, it's very dull, so we need to increase that. Let's try 100 watts first. I'm actually going to do 1,000 watts. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so that just brightens up our thing a little bit more and kind of adds some, you know, bounce ambient light in there. I believe for my actual testing, I did Alt-D, duplicate that, and then just kind of move that over here and then tilt that over there. And just add, you know, some more light because I wanted it very lit. And so now what we can do is I want to play around. You can, of course, add whatever you want inside of here, but I do want to play around with some metaballs since that's not really anything I messed around with before, and I thought it was a pretty cool effect. So let's go ahead, Shift A, add mesh, or sorry, metaball, and then you can of course choose any type of thing here. I'm just going to stick with the basic ball section. Then just Z up, move that up, and let's try to place it in the room as much as possible. It doesn't really matter, but again, I just kind of want it to you know, be inside of the room. And so with that, basically what metaballs are is if I go ahead and Alt D, that will create a instance. And if I Z move that down, you'll see what it does. It basically is, if you think of it as like a ball of liquid type thing where it kind of has like a surface tension here. And it's, I don't know the total technical aspects of metaballs or, you know, what exactly they do, but, you know, it kind of conjoins if they're close enough. And so I think that's a pretty cool effect, and we can play around with it a little bit. You will notice that it's very kind of jagged right now, and so what we actually need to do is with one of them selected, since we made it an instance, I don't believe we're going to have to do it for every single one, since all the copy and, you know, all the settings will copy and paste from each other automatically. So that's really nice. Again, that's just Alt-D to do that instead of Shift-D. Shift-D is just creating a duplicate, but it has its own individual settings. So if we come over here to the data, we can set the resolution. So the resolution for the viewport is totally fine. I'm just going to crank down the render resolution to a 0.025 meter. And if we save that real quick, let's go ahead and render an image. Okay, so now you can see it's super smooth when we render it out, but we're just going to keep it a little bit jagged in the viewport so we can save some render time. So what I want to do is I kind of want a lava lamp type feel to where they're moving up and down and they, you know, come in and out. Let's, first of all, I'm just going to scale this one down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top one. Then again, Alt-D instead of Shift-D. I'm just going to duplicate that. And let's set this one just a little bit backwards. So G, Y, something like that. Looks pretty sick. Just so we can get some different shapes. I might also move this one forward. So G, Y, move that forward a little bit. So just, we have some like cool shapes right now. And so what I want to do is let's select all these and I want to go ahead and add a location keyframe. And so if we hit I can add a location keyframe, and what that is going to allow us to do is actually animate the balls going up and down. Of course, you could do it yourself and add manual keyframes and stuff, but what I'm going to do is actually let Blender kind of, do a noise thing for the animation curves to actually have procedural noise in the thing. So it's actually super easy to do. Might sound a little bit complicated, but what we want to do is we want to bring out a new tab. Let's go to the graph editor, and then for now let's just hit N to hide that little menu. So we have all of our objects over here. Let's just kind of, bring those all out. And what I want to do is I just want it to move up and down. You can, of course, play around with the X and Y location and add some noise there too. If you really wanted it to look like a lava lamp, well, I'm just going to mess with the Z location because remember, Z is the up and down movement. So what I want to do, let's select the first one, the Z location again. Let's go to N to reveal this area over here. And then if we go to the modifiers tab, we're going to add a noise modifier. And what that will do is basically just add a bunch of noise right there going up and down. You can see it's moving over here. And this is where you can kind of have some fun and experiment. I kind of want it to, again, be like a lava lamp kind of going up and down very slowly. So let's increase the scale, and that's, the amount of time it takes for it to actually, the noise affected. And so you can see it's going up and down, pretty good speed right now, and I kind of like that, but it's not going as high as I want it to. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the strength, not too much, I think like a 2.5, and that way it's just moving up and down a little bit more. So let's just do the exact same thing and go ahead and do that for the Z location of the other balls too. So again, add a noise modifier. Let's do the scale way up, and then the strength up as well. You will notice if you kind of look at the curves right here side by side with one another, they're the exact same. And so we don't want that. If I play this now, they're basically moving in sync with each other. And so to get rid of that, I'm just going to come up here and play around with the offset, just set it to a random amount. And then they'll actually, that basically acts as a seed. And so it'll affect the kind of things differently. So that looks pretty good for the bottom one. Let's go ahead and do the last one. So Z location, I'm going to add a noise modifier, scale up, strength up, and then offset to a random number right there. And then you can, of course, play around with it. If you don't like the movement, add, a different offset. But this looks pretty good and, pretty, fluid. You can, of course, play around with some more stuff, get crazy with it, just have some fun. Ads are all about having fun and making interesting looking things to catch your eye. And so just play around there, get a result that you want. Of course, let's save our project. We can go ahead and close out of here. So join the areas. And then I want to go ahead and do some materials for these guys. So let's go to the render view. And then I kind of want to make it a white reflective material. And again, since we did make these instances, we only have to apply the material once, which is nice. It also saves on renderer data as well. So highly recommend you guys give instancing a try instead of duplicating. So let's add a new material. Just going to name this metaballs, like that. I'm just going to leave the base color white. We can go ahead and turn the roughness down, something like that. You can even make it a little bit metallic if you want, but that might introduce some kind of reflections of your actual HDRI. So let's actually just turn that off for now. And you can, of course, decrease specularity, increase it however you want. And one thing I will note is that right now we are in, I believe, the filmic color space. So if I come down to the color management here, it's set on filmic right now, and that's totally good for our actual like 3D CGI and stuff like that. But you will notice here that our image is a little bit color corrected a little bit weirdly, and so the process to kind of get rid of that and get that back in, because if I actually come back to standard, you'll notice that the kind of image looks good, but now our inside of here looks very kind of bad, and we have a lot of blown out areas here. And so a way to do that is to actually go ahead and render out the CGI only, and then composite that back on top of the footage separately later on, and actually switch it to the standard view transform, and then that way you keep the best color data. And so let's do that. Let's go ahead and set this to filmic. And if I come up to the compositing tab, we just want to hit use nodes, and this is the basic thing that pops up. Let's go ahead and with the node wrangler add-on, so edit preferences, add-ons, and go type in node wrangler. Honestly, this should be installed by default, but for some reason Blender doesn't want to do that. So anyway, we can shift control click the image there, just hit V to zoom out of there. And so this is what we are basically having rendered. We do have alpha, which is very nice. So let's go ahead and set up some render settings. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to set it to PNG, then RGBA. You want to make sure we have the alpha channel to work with. Compression down to 0. And then let's just save it in a new folder location. I highly recommend, if you guys are doing a PNG sequence, is to end with an underscore right here, just so it separates the numbers from the actual text of your image sequence. Let's go ahead and accept that. And then again, we only want this. We don't want to combine anything. And then let's go ahead and set up some render properties just to render out a little bit faster. This is kind of what I find that helps me and shouldn't affect the image quality. And so let's come to the render properties. I'm just going to come out to the layout view and just view this in case anything does change. We want to be able to see that. And so first of all, we want to denoise the thing, but let's not use this denoise. Let's actually do a better version of denoising. So I'm going to come up to the view layer properties. I'm going to add a denoising data node. And then what that will do is, if we come back out to compositing, it adds all this information in now. And so what I want to do is I want to add a denoise node, plug the image into the image, normal, albedo into the albedo. It's super simple. And of course, nothing is being shown because we haven't rendered an image yet. So let's come back out to layout. And let's go ahead and go into the render properties. Now, since this is a super basic scene and we don't have a lot of light bouncing and stuff, I'm going to go into the light paths and just change all of these down to a 3. So if you just click and drag down, you got to avoid going side to side. And then if you hit 3, it just sets all of them like that. And so our render hasn't changed up here, which is totally good. And then I want to go ahead and decheck the caustics. Let's do fast GI approximation. Again, that has changed something up here, so that's why I like kind of using this as a reference. So that looks super ugly. We need to change this up to 2 and maybe even 3. Yeah, so I'm going to do 3 just to get it back to what we're looking at. And then let's go ahead and turn motion blur on. And the default shutter is totally fine. And then I believe everything else is correct. Again, we do want to be in Filmic for this part. And so once you have all of that set up and it's going to render out super fast, let's go ahead and render the animation. Okay, so whenever your render is finished, we need to actually combine our CG on top of our footage again, because we broke that up again to do with the color and making sure we get the best color accuracy. And so let's come out to File again. We're going to go New, General, and let's come up here to Compositing. We're going to hit Use Nodes. For this, we're not going to be rendering anything with the render layers, which is, all the 3D viewports, since we already did it in the other project. So let's go ahead and exit out of that. I'm going to go ahead and add our movie clip back in, and let's open up our footage. Okay, so I'm just going to select the clip right here, open the clip, and then we also need to import in our image sequence of our CG. So let's open that up as well. Okay, so just hit A, select all those, open the clip. And so now we have the two kind of separated. Of course, we need to add a alpha over again to combine the two back. So I'm going to put my movie clip on top and then my footage on the bottom. And let's Control Shift click that. And I actually put it in the wrong order because I always do. And so let's just switch those real quick. You want the actual footage on top. And that is looking pretty good. Again, it's that washed out kind of filmic look. And so what we can finally do is, the reason we're doing all of this is to come over to Render Properties, Color Management, and change filmic to standard. And now all the colors are looking accurate. And this is where you can do your compositing. I'm not going to do too much. I actually took my final composite inside a nuke to match the grain and some other stuff like that. But let's go ahead. I like to try to add a glare node. So I'm going to come to a frame where I can actually see this, and let's change it to fog glow and the threshold down. If you are curious about how I did the screen, I basically just added a plane in front of that and then just animated it to go backwards and then go down. Not too hard there. Anyways, so with our glare node, we can just change around the threshold. You can see that's added a little bit. Actually, it might be too much for me. It might be, clipping some of our colors, so I'm just going to get rid of that. What I do want to do, though, is try to match the defocus of the actual plane. You'll notice that, and you can't see it the best since Blender isn't that great at compositing, but if I zoom in, the building is a little bit out of focus, and so we want to try to match that. Let's just add a blur node, plug that in there. I might just switch it to fast Gaussian just to save on some time, and it's not a lot of blur, so I'm just going to do maybe like a 5 pixel blur. We'll see that. That's actually a little bit too much, excuse me. So let's do a 2 blur. Again, it's just super subtle. So let's actually go to 1, and that just matches it in a little bit better. You can mostly see on the sides here when I disable and disable it. It might be a little bit tough for you to see on YouTube, but again, this is where you can go and, you know, maybe I do want to add a hue saturation value node, and let's boost the saturation just a little bit, and that's where you can go and play around with that. But once you're happy with everything inside of here, of course, we do have to set our scene frames down here. So I'm going to set that to 150 since I cut mine a little bit short from the actual clip. And then once you have that, we can go over to the output properties. We want to set our file location now. And since this is going to render out so much faster, let's set this to be FFmpeg video. Go to encoding. I'm going to set that to QuickTime. You can, of course, also do MP4. That's totally fine. And then I'm going to set mine to be a high quality. And H.264 is totally fine for what I'm needing this for. Of course, if you do want to mess around with some of the codecs and get some higher quality there, I recommend DNxHD is actually a pretty good codec for that. But once you have all that set up and your composite is looking how you want it to, we can finally go up to the top and render the final animation. Okay, so here is the final result that we got from this tutorial. Hopefully you guys got a similar result and were able to follow along with all of the stuff that we did. If you guys did follow along, I'd love to see what you guys made. So if you do post it anywhere, make sure to tag me and I'd love to check it out. Anyways, I'd greatly appreciate it if you guys liked and subscribed, which would help me out with the channel. But anyways, I will see you in the next video.